Hi, everyone. I'm James Garbutt.
And I'm Denny Dumas.
And this is the Garbutt Dumas Real Estate Podcast.
Jamie, describe single-family houses in one word.
Standalone? No, that's not one word. That's two words. How would I do that?
I meant the single-family market.
Oh, hot. Okay, the market. Okay.
Not describe the construction.
I don't.
Standalone.
We need to start over. We need to do over on this one. It's hot, Denny.
That's what I'm going to say. Someone's going to call me today and ask how houses are doing, and I'm going to say standalone.
Describe it.
All right, let's try again.
Let's try again.
Single-family homes, market.
Hot.
Single-family. Okay,
you're not asking me this time. Okay.
No, that's great. No, that's great. That's great. It is wild out there. It is absolutely wild. I've used the word bonkers and bananas more times in the last month and a half than I have in my previous 31 years, Jamie. You can really insert any adjective that starts with a B, obviously, because those are the ones I use. Crazy. No, it's close. It's C. It's like 2016, but it's different in that the prices are not surprising me because of how low inventory is. And we've had a couple of years in 2016, 17 where we saw prices climb very quickly. But the amount of activity is something different that I didn't see this level in 2016.
No, it has a different vibe for, I think 2016, it was still, I imagine, a small percentage of the market, but it seemed to have a trickle out effect. And that was the foreign buyers.
Yeah.
There was a lot of fear about foreign buyers and Richmond, Vancouver, West, Burnaby West Van had a lot of gains from it. And that seemed to fuel a lot of the market back then. 2015 fall, I remember it having very little supply of homes. And so 2016 early days saw the big jump. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of these markets that I just listed off, some of the peak all-time most ridiculous prices were in the early spring of 2016. The difference now is it's not really driven by foreigners. We have ridiculously low mortgage interest rates. We have a post-pandemic world where a lot of people want more space. Mm-hmm. And so we're seeing regular people that live in this city that were born and raised here or just work here that are migrating within the city. And a lot of it's going east due to affordability. A lot of it's going to detached houses, which is what we're talking about here today. Mm-hmm. And so this market, similarities, low supply, very low supply, and it's still low. Which is very similar to what 2015, 2016 had, but the difference is it's just regular people. It's not the foreign wave. Mm-hmm. This is entry-level homes that are smoking hot, townhouses, but entry-level homes particularly have nothing available right now. And we say nothing. There's very little available right now. And I'm saying that because anytime one pops up, we all know about it.
And we have 6 or 8 different clients that want to see it.
Yeah, on our Slack feed.
We're trying to claim new listings. So like Monica, Lucas, Adam, me and Jamie, we have this Slack feed. And every time a new listing comes up, we're like, I saw it first. I'm seeing it tomorrow morning at 9. You guys can't see it.
Whose buyer gets to offer? Yeah. So the market is teed up for, right now, it is purely driven by a low supply.
Yeah.
If there was excess supply of detached homes that met the demand, I don't see that happening. I think that supply is further out east. That's why we're seeing these crazy bidding wars, this leap in prices, and it seems like it happens overnight. And that's what happens when 10 people want the same home over and over.
Well, okay, so that's one of the things I wanted to just share with people to open people's eyes of what is actually going on. Is 2016, 17, it felt like prices were climbing, things were selling $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 over asking. But there was like 8 to 15 offers on a good house in New West Burnaby, Tri-Cities. That has like doubled and tripled in some circumstances. I have never seen multiple 40 and 50 offer properties in a week before. And it's happening regularly it seems like we mentioned, people are moving east for more space, more affordability for now. And the neighborhoods that are going crazy are like parts of Langley, Abbotsford, Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge, places that were like almost seen as, wait, that you want to show me a house over there? That is way too far away. And now those are the hottest spots because of price points, really. And those are the places that are getting 100 showings in the first week and getting 30 plus offers. And that's something different that I haven't seen before. And that, in terms of like affordability and optimism for young families trying to get into a single family home, is super discouraging. If you lose out against 6 other people, it's like, we know what we need to do for next time. If you lose out against 45 other people, how many more houses need to come available until you are going to actually win one? And how much is that market going to climb in the next few months while you keep going to see places? It is, it's something different. It's like, we like to make predictions on where the market is going. It's tough to do it this year. And like from January 1st, just based on how much different November and December were than a lot of 2020, I said 25% run on single family homes this year, but it's already been 15.
Yeah,
right.
I don't think it's
days.
as smooth. Like a lot, you know, it's nice to kind of think, oh, it's like on a curve or on a chart.
Yeah,
January to June, it just goes up steadily. You know, and it's not like that because you know you get. You know, well, I had a client that offered on a house in Murrayville, and these markets that you're talking about are the prime examples because Monica and our team had a client offer on a place in Maple Ridge that sold $300,000 above list and had over 40 offers, and our client was very discouraged to hear that. Yeah. So, but what I'm getting at is these areas, these markets, Langley, Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows, East, they're seeing all-time high prices, and they're also seeing far more demand than supply in, call it under 1.5 price ranges, but heavily in that under 1.3 range. Mm-hmm. And these listings are pricing these, I call it mistakes. When you have 40 plus offers, it's a bit of a mistake because you underpriced it. You caused too much work for yourself. You're spending too much time dealing with the 35 offers that are out of contention. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's nice when you get 10 offers on a detached home, but 45, you priced it on fall prices and the market's changed. And so what happens is you get what I think we've in these markets, Maple Ridge, Langley, in November, December, summer was busier than expected. Then the supply dried up a little bit in the fall and there wasn't much available. And so the fall, November prices were higher than September prices and December prices were higher than November prices. And the holidays happened and everything went away and nothing really came back in January except for a few. Mm-hmm. And those few listings that came back in January, well, buyers were looking at their 1.5% interest rates, looking at their increased affordability, looking at, everything's telling me the market's going to go up. So let's put so some of these buyers step up on the next one. Mm-hmm. And that 15% lift in prices that happened in 2 months in some of these examples doesn't mean that we're not seeing gradual increases here. It means that 15% lift happened because there was one house in a good neighborhood that's around that $1.2 million price range, and they decided to price it at $999 because that's what they were going for last summer. And the market's now at 1.2, and there's 50 people that want it. Because 40 of them, their budget is under $1 million, and 10 of them are willing to go a little higher. Yeah. And then that one sells for 1.2, and what happens to the next listing that hits? So the next listing that hits, in this kind of market where social distance showings and showing by appointment, the next listing that hits should be priced around the sale price. But when oftentimes, we're finding instances in these markets where they're underpricing listings, causing extreme chaos and frustration, causing 40 plus offers, causing stories where Denny can't get his buyers into houses.
I get pretty fired up about this stuff.
I'm getting ahead of the topic here a bit.
Well, you tell me if you think, so I appreciate and understand that people run businesses very differently in our industry. What is extremely frustrating is that there are people in our industry that think when markets are busy, their job is easier. And I think the exact opposite. Yes, properties are going to sell very quickly, But orchestrating this chaos is a fine skill that needs to be adjusted in busy markets. So I'm trying to come up with the ideas or philosophies of like what is actually happening here. So I think a lot of it may be inexperience. It may be newer agents who maybe didn't go through 2016 and 17.
Are we talking specifically about underpriced listings?
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
But if I would say ask for advice if you don't know or aren't able to orchestrate the chaos appropriately. It can get overwhelming. I get it. And so in a typical year, Jamie, how many months back would you look at to evaluate a property?
There's no typical year, but I can give you a good example here. So maybe in 2015 might have been a good one. Like early 2015.
Yeah.
I can remember at that time going back to like because detached homes can be challenging to evaluate.
Definitely.
I can remember at that time going back 4 or 5 years because there was a period of time from 2010 to say maybe early 2015 where there wasn't a lot of market gain. And so I even if the market has changed, I get a lot of value out of going back on sales 2-3 years back that were on the same block just to do my equation of lift. So in relatively typical, normal-ish markets, I'd go back 2 years. And in some flattish periods, I'd go back 4 or 5 on the extreme cases. But I've evaluated some properties lately, and I'm going back 2 months.
You're looking at the last sale.
I'm going back 2 months.
Yeah.
But I do still do a little check back. So just my process of evaluating, right now, the last 2 months mean the most. I want to see what this listing's priced at and what has sold in this price range in the last 60 days. And particularly when I look at the last 2 months, as we're doing this podcast on February 2nd, January sales mean a lot more than December sales. So really at this moment in time, the last 30 days mean the most. But I also do the double check and I go back within, let's say, I want to know that price range. If it's a $1-2 million home, I want to know I want to know 1.4 to 1. What's been selling from $1 million to 1.4, $200,000 either way in the last 60 days, and try to do my structural math, lot value math, comparison. And then I will also look at the history on that street within, say, 2 blocks going back 2-3 years, just to see where we're at. And the latest home that I evaluated, because we're all over town these days, is in Tawasin, and another market that's experiencing all-time peak high prices. And so what I found with this particular house that I evaluated, the prices in January were higher than the prices in December. The prices in January were higher than 2016 prices. And that's not every market. Not every market is above peak pricing. Let's just put that out there first. But last 30 to 60 days when you're evaluating a home is important. And then also just understanding the sales within a block or two, going a little deeper.
I think where the problem is coming from is a lot of people get into the routine of evaluating properties the same way. Looking in, a direct neighborhood, selecting what's sold in the last 12 months, averaging out sale prices based on how many bedrooms, bathrooms, lot size, and picking a number. Sales 3 months back and before that are completely irrelevant right now. And so the problems that I've ran into in the last couple of weeks, mostly in those extremely hot markets, like Burnaby and New West are not as crazy and prices are not going as crazy and we're not seeing as many offers, but Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge have been out in a lot recently. Yeah. As prices climb in Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge, Langley, Tawasin, I think it'll help New West Burnaby because they're going to be pretty similar price points pretty soon. They're just pricing so low. So there was 2 that we went to go see we tried to go see this past week, and they're both listed at $799, which is a hilarious number. Yeah. The last few sales are in the $9 to $1 million range. And then looking back into last summer, they were $750, $775. So $799 makes sense 6 months ago. And so I send 2 touch bases. Touch base is an internal realtor messaging system for these 2 properties. I'm just going to go into the story now.
Get into it. Go deep.
And both had been listed less than 24 hours. Both realtors messaged me back. I'm sorry, we're full. I don't really accept that as an answer. So I reply to both and say, hey, literally this just listed. You have to assume that it's going to be busy, pricing it at this number. Like, we have to accommodate showings. Give me 5 minutes. You tell me what time. I can come at 2:45 a.m. Like, you tell me, we'll be there. We want 5 minutes to walk through the home. So one agent calls me and just says, look, I wasn't expecting it to be this busy. I said, really? It's going to sell above 900. You listed at 750. He's like, really? And so whatever, we have this conversation and he's like, you're right. I'll make it happen. And so he doubles up showings and gets a lot more people in there. I thought he did it actually very well. The other person just replies to me on Touchbase and says, I'm sorry, we're full. We have 47 showings, COVID. So to me, understand that this is a very busy market. Understand how extremely frustrating that buying in a market like this is already for buyers. When they've missed out on a few that they've lost in multiples and a new home comes up and they love it and they get told they're not allowed to see it, to me, that is unacceptable for our industry.
Yeah, I think realtors, we got to work together.
Yeah.
Like if we recognize if you are full on showings and not taking more, I understand there's certain situations where a seller might be challenging to work with, might be a tenanted property, it might be out of your control in some instances. But if you recognize that you've blocked off all showings and you're saying no to people, then you're saying no to potentially the highest offer. You're saying no to realtors that are representing buyers that have to have a real challenging conversation with their buyer on why they can't get them into the home. If, the advantage of our industry is we have the MLS, we're working together, let's accommodate this. So that would be the moment that those showing windows fill up is the moment that I would be changing my offer presentation date and adding more showing windows to accommodate more people into the home. Mm-hmm. I think that if you have a new detached home listing and you're out in this market, you want to get everybody in there in that first 7 days. And the moment that fills up, plan B. Yeah. Open up more spaces. Yeah. Open up more. Give options. But just straight up saying no, yeah, there might be some instances where that's okay.
I think they're extremely rare because the excuses that I've been given in the last 2 weeks is the seller asked me to cut it off at 50 showings. That is the most hilariously comical thing I've ever heard. I understand we need to be more cautious with COVID in the last year. I get it. Have you ever had a seller say, you know what? I'm just going to take the first 50 people. Like, if you're having 50 people come through your home, like, what's the difference between 50 and 58?
At the end of the day, you don't want to leave the best extra offers on the table. Like, you don't want to miss out on an opportunity, and you don't know where the best offer is going to come from.
So I'm obviously speaking out of frustration in dealing with this on the buyer's end, but on the seller's end, to me, it's a big disservice to your seller. And if you are, I would assume, based on the fact that I had messaged those couple of realtors in the first 24 hours, that there was 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 other realtors in the next day or two that had been turned away as well. So if you're cutting showings in half, that's cutting offers in half. That is potentially losing out on $100,000 for a seller. How do you explain that to them? Are they even aware that this is happening? So that is my big problem. If a seller actually says, I'd like to cut showings off at 50, which I don't believe has happened yet. Okay. Write it on the listing. Maybe choose a different strategy than pricing at a price that was relevant a year ago. Maybe price it on the higher end. If you know going into the listing that you're going to be cutting showings off at 25 showings or whatever that may be, it's outrageous. And there's no rules. So I had chatted to a couple mortgage managing brokers, and their frustration was even more than mine. because they're also realtors and they're dealing with the same thing. And so I say, well, like there are rules of cooperation in in our industry, but one of them is the seller can do whatever they want as long as it's lawful. So if the realtor tells you that the seller has cut it off, technically there's nothing really you can do. And it needs to be in writing, and most people wouldn't get it in writing or ask for it in writing. But I think you make a good point, Jamie. I think we need to work together here.
Just be mindful.
I'm more concerned. Like, I'm not concerned about me. I'm not concerned about my client buying this house so that I get a paycheck. I'm concerned about the relationships in the industry with each other. I'm concerned about relationships with the public from realtors in our industry. And this, like, regardless of whether you think you're doing the right thing or not, you have to be aware of those relationships. You have to be aware of what the public perception is. And if you're telling people, no, you're not allowed to look at this home that's for sale, it looks pretty backwards.
What does the average realtor sell in a given year? Like how many deals?
6 or 7.
And that's an average active realtor. Yeah. And how many would you guess would be buyers for that realtor, that average realtor?
75%.
Yeah. And when that realtor has a conversation with their buyer saying, I can't get you into the home, I mean, it's hard enough to be a new realtor or even an average realtor in this business because the paychecks come so sporadically. So when you have that one buyer, that might be your deal of the month or the next 2 months. And, you know, some buyers everyone's different. Some people are ruthless. And if you can't get them into the home, they'll move on to the next. And yeah, I feel for those agents that have those tough conversations. And that's really, mainly because these are avoidable circumstances 99% of the time.
Yeah.
99% of the time, when that agent's saying, no, you can't get in here, it's because they made the mistake on underpricing the listing. And it's easy to make that mistake right now if you are not an active realtor in the market weekly seeing these homes. It's easy to, oh, my friend phoned me, I'm going to sell their house. They trust me. They're not interviewing any other agents. Let me just dust my shoes off and get my suit on and get out there and look at the falls, the sales from the fall. Oh, this was a $900,000 home. It sold in September. Oh, let's price it at $900,000. And then January's price is 1.1. They're shocked by that. They're going off of, they're a little bit, some are a little bit out of touch. The active, the dominant, the prominent realtors in an area have the advantage of seeing the last example the week before. So our team has the advantage of, one, how many detached listings we have now? We have a few. So we're experiencing that. We have live data as it comes in. We're going to have some more sales prices this Friday and next Monday that will give us an advantage of where sales are for next week. Not everyone has it. We have a Slack feed that has 5 realtors sharing all the crazy stories. So we there is an advantage there by being active. When you're not as active and you don't have those experiences, you got to look at the last 30 days. And if you're looking at 90 days ago and you're underpricing at 20% and it's your mistake, try to fix your mistake. You know, try to fix it. And I think that is the true frustration here is underpricing a listing is you've lost bragging rights when you said your listing sells $300,000 above list price. You know, unless your listing is $3 million, if your listing's $800,000, you're bragging about a $200,000 or $300,000 above list. It's just, you know, it's a lot of energy in the wrong direction. It's clearly underpriced listing. I'd be more proud of, you know, a 5 to 10 range offer situation, knowing that you just isolated the right buyers and could focus on the right people.
And I just want to clear, I don't think it's always a mistake. So, but okay. I don't think it's always a mistake. It is a real strategy that can result in a huge record sale price for the seller. But if you're attacking that strategy, which is okay, realtors understand it works. Public hate it, but realtors understand you have to accommodate. But you can't just cut people out.
Yeah, I think a genuine difference between now and 2016 is, let's use 1-2 house. If we thought a house was going to get 1-2,
yeah,
and we wanted to sell it next Monday, subject free, there was a legitimate argument back then to price it at $999 and have crowded open houses and have 100 shoes outside and let the mob take it away.
Yeah.
But today, you can't show it that way. And so that 1.2, if the house is 1.2, don't price it at $999 in this market. Price it at 1.2 or 1.15 or like a little bit under, maybe, if you're trying to maybe $1,099,000. But it's those cases where you're going 200 under the sale price that's causing havoc right now. And right now you don't need to do it. There's not enough supply. You don't need to play that game.
Yeah.
You can price it 50,000, like much closer to where you think it's going to line up and still have the same outcome. So, anyway.
And I think a lot of public maybe get misrepresented information that 40 offers means that there were 40 competitive offers on a property that, let's take this Maple Ridge one, for example, that was listed at $799, sold just over $1 million. So sold over $200K over. I think their final number was like 22 offers out of 50 showings. So 50%, which is wild. I would guess out of 22 offers on that one, I would guess 18 of them were not even close. Yeah. And there was 3 or 4 that were maybe in the same kind of ballpark. Maybe all were subject free, maybe gave them the right dates, that maybe were competitive. I mean, this realtor because I had touch base, they kept me in the feed. So like they kept sending messages out to anyone who had inquired. And every time I got a message back being like, I'd love to write an offer, I just would like to see the home first. And maybe I shouldn't do that, but it is what it is.
A little
for keeping me in here on all these messages, I feel like it was deserved.
There's been some angry moments in our Slack feed over the last few weeks.
Man. And like Adam's been involved in a couple in Cloverdale that had 40 plus offers. But out of those 40 offers, like keep it in perspective that, you know, if it's listed at $999 and it sells at 1.2, maybe 5, 6 were in the ballpark of 1.1 to 1.2, but there was probably 40 of them that were around list price or $1,025,000 that weren't just not even in contention.
I think a good point that you made there is the amount of offers that aren't in contention. And when I look back at some of our best sales from the last wave of 2016 to 2018, there was some of our best sales had one standout offer. You know, there was a gap, 50,000, 100,000 between the best offer and the second best offer. Yeah. And so you don't need 40 offers to get that. I think if, 5 is that number to me. Like, it's a random number. But let's say if you're after a house in Walnut Grove that's 1.2 million and it has 5 or more offers, that 5 offer mark to me is where I would definitely put a higher price than the last sale on the market. Meaning, like, if there was a comp, I'm like, they had a better kitchen, but it sold for 1.2. I'd pay more for this worse kitchen. I'd pay 1.25 or 1.22, but increase the offer over the precedent sale, because there's going to be 4 other buyers or 10 other buyers that missed out on this one, and whatever that house sells for is going to set the new precedent for the next one. When the supply is this low, that's how the market climbs so quickly. The person that gets the next house puts a better offer than the last one, and it just jumps and jumps and jumps. And then what will happen probably by April, May, is there'll be a flood of listings coming. And those listings will probably be at the newly established price points that happens over the climb that we're experiencing right now. But it's just, there's more options. But right now we're in an environment where there's very little supply. So as a buyer, if you keep offering what the last sale is, or offering with the intent that you're hoping to get that counter offer, you're likely to just watch the market climb. And we've had many buyers that have watched the market climb 20% plus in front of their eyes from the start of their search to the end. And that is frustrating as a realtor. But, you can't control it sometimes. It is what it is.
It is.
Well, let's get into some examples, because we're talking about frustrations of emotions and what we're experiencing. But let's talk about what these price points are getting you, Denny. So you have some example. Well, what are some specific stories that you can share? That's some January stories that give people an idea of value here.
Love to. Should we start with Maple Ridge?
Let's do it.
I've seen a lot in Maple Ridge recently, and it was an area that we weren't super involved in the first few years of my career, but over the last 3, we're out there weekly, it seems like, because Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows, I'll kind of put them together, but they are communities that are really growing with young families, young couples, a lot of people moving there for more space to be, close to mountains and lakes. And it's a different vibe than being close to the city. A lot more amenities, breweries, shopping. People, it's booming.
I think Maple Ridge is a gem. I think 100 years out. I mean, it's good now. I mean, it has Golden Ears, Alouette Lake, like beautiful landscape right behind it. Has a bit of as a city folk, has a bit of a hillbilly reputation going back, but that's changing.
Totally.
You know, look at the people that you're representing out there.
Totally.
Did they grow up in Maple Ridge?
Nope.
No. You grew up in Burnaby, now you're moving to Maple Ridge. You grew up in Vancouver, you're considering those areas. Yeah. And Maple Ridge doesn't have like the popularity that say like a Fort Langley might have, or some other. Langley seems to get a little more attention than Maple Ridge, but from a landscape area, I love the look of Maple Ridge. I love the land that's available out there.
Well, I think getting out of Langley has been historically easier for people who work in Vancouver because you're right on the freeway. Whereas Maple Ridge is kind of, there's two arteries to get out of Maple Ridge, and when they're both jammed at 8 a.m. in the morning, it can be frustrating trying to get to work. They do have the West Coast Express, which is awesome if you work downtown. But in the last 12 months, people are realizing that a lot of their job can be done from home and is going to be for the foreseeable future. So they are, I think, adjusting their priority list, and home space in your home, having a yard and being surrounded by people like yourselves and nature is moving up the priority list than proximity to job.
Absolutely. You can back onto Alouette River and go up to Golden Ears on the weekend.
Totally.
Don't have to leave it.
Yeah.
Don't have to leave your own city.
Yeah. But in Maple Ridge, it's kind of an interesting mix of like 70s, 80s homes in West Maple Ridge that are on small lots, 4,000 square foot lots that are 2,000 square feet-ish. And those are the ones that I've been looking at a lot recently that have climbed from 750, 800 to around $1 million now. But West Maple Ridge, so you're closer to the city. You have a ton of amenities, very, very within walking distance, lots of parks. Moving farther into the east side of Maple Ridge, there is more newer construction. There's bigger homes. I've seen a few like 3,000 plus square foot homes that are now in the 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 kind of range, depending on neighborhood and lot size and that kind of thing.
Maple Ridge is at all-time peak pricing right now. Same
Absolutely.
with Langley. Talking about Langley for a moment, Willoughby Heights, Walnut Grove, Murrayville, Brookswood, Cloverdale. Those are some of the areas that I've been showing some homes lately. And a real nice, easy one, Willoughby Heights. Let's call it 2005 built, 15-year-old homes. A lot of them were built between 2000 and 2012. A 3,200 square foot home, 3-level with a basement suite. Those markets, like Burnaby peaked in 2016. Those markets, the previous peak was like 2018 for those markets. It was a little bit later. And in 2018, like a 2005 built 3,200 square foot home with a suite might have gotten 125, call it. And then in 2019 and in the early 2020, that might have dipped to like a 115 mark. And now that is 1.4. So it went from 115 or 1.2 to 1.4, I'd say in a 12-month window.
Yeah.
And that is a nice home in Willoughby Heights. And that sort of math is pretty consistent with a lot of areas out that way. It might be a different formula, but what is that? A 15, 20% jump in 12 months. And there's nothing really available.
Really in 3 months.
Yeah, really in 3. Right. Yeah, a lot of that was in 3 months. A lot of the gains that you're going to see over the homes that are selling this year or now, they realized that gain in the last 2-3 months. A large part of it. Yeah.
Go ahead if you have something.
Well, no, what were you going to mention?
I was just going to say, should we finish with a prediction for the spring?
Well, you know what? Prediction next. Let me just cover one more thing. I want to talk about Coquitlam because we're talking about the chaos of entry-level homes. Yeah. Tsawwassen, you need 1.1 to get into a house out there. It's what was 900 is now 1.1. What was $1 million is now 1.2 or 1.3. Same story as Langley. So, and I think a lot of these markets is over 1 million to get into a home. Coquitlam, basically under 1.5 or arguably under 2 million in a lot of the markets, Coquitlam and over is in the seller's favor. Under 1.5 particularly gets a ton of interest. but there's value over too.
Yeah.
So there's, when you look, not that, it's value for those that can afford it. But when you look at what's selling for 1.2 to 1.4 or even 1.5 in, say, Coquitlam area, which Coquitlam is very similar to parts of Burnaby, New West, and Port Moody, you could basically 8,000 square foot lot, a tear down might get 1.4. And people a lot of times they're buying it to tear it down. And then putting up a 5,500 or 6,000 square foot new home in some of these cases. That 5,500 or 6,000 square foot new home, for most people, is going to cost at least 200 a foot to build. So call it 1.2. You're buying the land for 1.4. You're building it for 1.2. You're taking over a year of your energy and life. There's financing costs. It might even be more than that. It might be $250 a foot. They're increasing energy codes. Like, new construction is getting more expensive. But
how expensive is lumber right now?
Oh, that's crazy.
Right?
Everything's going up. The thing is, though, the sales that have happened in January, right now, and in the last 6 months, for newer homes, for homes built in the last 10 years, have been, in my opinion, far below replacement value. It doesn't make sense to buy and build and sell unless you just want to keep your trades busy as a spec builder and you're really betting on the market. But right now, there's an arguable move in a market like Coquitlam. Instead of being a builder, just buy the built home, sit on it for a couple of years, and sell it again. When you can get a 5,500 square foot or 6,000 square foot home on an 8 or 10,000 square foot lot in Coquitlam that's built 5 years ago for low twos, and it would cost you high twos to replace that today. To me, that's where the value is. And there arguably might be some value in raw land because it's tough to get loans on, but anything that is livable, entry-level detached that's where the market is. That's where the buyers are. It's hard to find value there. But it doesn't mean that it's going to go down in price. Might be good value today compared to tomorrow.
That's the thing I said in 2016, earlier in my career, when I hadn't seen a market like this, is it's hard to find value in the numbers that are happening right now. But then 2 months later, I look back and thought, man, that was a steal. So I think 2020 could be very similar. And a lot of our buyer clients were, it's a cautious suggestion, but I think early in the year, even if you're stretching yourselves and you feel uncomfortable with the number you're throwing out there, is going to look like a pretty good sale price in 6 months from now. I see this run continuing for the next 6, 12, 18 months. And I think inventory is going to remain low. I think a lot of downsizers are still, who are considering downsizing in the next couple of years, are still cautious about having people in their homes. And there's not going to be enough inventory in the next 12 months.
It's a great year for downsizers. If the market trickles to those higher price points, it's a great year for those downsizers to liquidate.
Totally.
Yeah. You made, one thing to kind of just consider, and it's hard for some people to wrap their head around, how does the market go so hot when there's a pandemic and so much bad going on, people losing their jobs and restaurants and stuff closing. Yeah. And really the buyers and the people we're representing in these cases aren't affected by it. A lot of these people that are looking aren't affected by the pandemic or didn't lose their jobs. And that, in combination with a little bit looser lending and lower rates, means that people are willing to take on more debt and have access to more debt. And what that does is willingness to take on more mortgage, having access to it, wanting more space, that increases the money supply, that increases the cost of homes. That is why houses will go up 20% plus when the economy is flat or downward. So it's access to the funds, access to the loans that is really driving this. We would not be seeing 50 offers on a $1.2 million place if mortgages weren't available. It just wouldn't happen, right? So lending's a big part of this too.
The higher level, higher net worth investor type person, I think is struggling to, you correct me if I'm wrong, but struggling to understand where they should be putting their money right now, knowing that we may see a larger inflation rate over the coming years based on how much money the government has given out in the last 12 months. Stock markets have were very good in the second half of 2020. And I think real estate is a place where people feel pretty secure long-term with parking money. And they don't want to sit on cash because cash might devalue very quickly.
You're absolutely right. I mean, real estate is a good hedge for inflation. And if you bought some GameStop stock the other week, we'd love to hear from you, help you buy a home. Yeah, it's crazy out there. But yeah, if the markets are up and the money is cheap and people are willing to take on more debt and people want more space, it's a formula for crazy years ahead until they take away that extra lending and make loans feel a little scary for buyers. I think we're going to have chaos in this market.